Welcome back to Coins Most Valuable. Today we're diving deep into the world of wheat pennies. And I'm telling you right now, some of these ordinary-looking pennies hiding in old jars, drawers, or pocket change can be worth way more than you'd ever expect. And if you think you've seen all the valuable dates before, trust me, you haven't. What I'm about to show you in this video could completely change the way you look at every single wheat penny you find from this day forward. So stay with me all the way to the end, because the most surprising and most valuable wheat pennies are actually the ones people overlook the most. And if you love discovering rare coins, valuable finds, and real stories from American pocket change, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on the bell so you never miss a new upload. Let's get started. Your next life-changing coin might be waiting. Coin number 1. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark is one of those coins that every collector in America has heard about, but very few people truly understand how valuable it can be. When people think of old pennies, they usually imagine common coins worth a penny or maybe a few cents. But the 1944 wheat penny stands in a different category entirely, because it comes from one of the most important years in U.S. coin history. And when someone finds the right variety, the right condition, or the right striking quality, these coins have sold for shockingly high amounts of money at auction. That's why collectors across the country still search through pocket change, jars, and family collections, hoping to find a special 1944 wheat penny hiding in plain sight. And that's why you should stay with me all the way through this full breakdown, because by the end, you'll understand exactly what makes this coin valuable, what separates the common from the rare, and why serious collectors still pay life-changing prices for certain 1944 pennies. The first thing to understand is that the 1944 no mint mark wheat penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a unique moment in American history. World War II had completely transformed U.S. coinage. In 1943, the mint produced steel pennies coated in zinc to save copper for the war effort. But in 1944, everything shifted back to bronze, and that alone makes this coin historically powerful. It marks the exact moment America transitioned away from emergency wartime materials and returned to traditional coin metal. That connection to American history is a huge reason collectors chase this coin. You're not just looking at a penny. You're holding a piece of World War II history. Now, the 1944 penny is one of the most heavily produced wheat pennies, but that does not mean your coin has no chance of being valuable. In fact, condition plays a massive role. Since most 1944 pennies circulated heavily, it is very difficult to find one today with sharp details, full mint color, and minimal wear. When collectors find examples that still have their original red or red-brown tones, those coins can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their preservation and strike quality. And that's where the story of auction prices becomes very interesting. Because at auction, the best examples of the 1944 no mint mark penny have shattered expectations. The highest price ever recorded for a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark reached an extraordinary $11,500 for a blazing red example with near-perfect detail. That is the power of condition and rarity combined. A coin that cost 1 cent in 1944 turned into more than $11,000 simply because it survived in pristine form. And that is why people keep searching. That is why collectors get excited. And that is why you should never underestimate any coin until you understand its full story. But let's slow down and take a deeper look at why certain 1944 pennies rise to the top. First is the strike quality. Philadelphia produced billions of coins that year, but the mint was operating at maximum speed. That means many coins were struck quickly, lightly, or with worn dies. A sharp, well-struck 1944 penny stands out instantly. When collectors see crisp hairlines on Lincoln's portrait, clean wheat stalk details on the reverse, and no major weakness in the fields, they know the coin has potential. Combine that with original red color, and now you have a coin capable of drawing major attention from serious collectors. Second is preservation. Most 1944 pennies lived in circulation for decades. They passed through hands during the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, and beyond. They were used in stores, saved in jars, dumped in drawers, and carried loose in pockets. Very few were set aside immediately after minting. That's why mint state examples, especially bright red ones, are extremely difficult to find. Some collectors even describe locating a 1944 red example as like finding a small piece of time frozen since World War II. Another detail many collectors overlook is toning. A 1944 penny with natural, attractive toning can sometimes bring a premium because collectors appreciate coins that aged beautifully instead of being cleaned or damaged. But the biggest risk is cleaning. Any cleaning, polishing, or attempt to make a coin look new can destroy its value instantly. So when you're evaluating a 1944 wheat penny, never clean it. Always keep it in its natural state. Now let's talk about something that really grabs attention. The possibility of transitional errors. In 1943, the mint made steel pennies. In 1944, it switched back to bronze. But a few leftover steel planchets remained in the system. That means a tiny handful of genuine 1944 steel pennies exist, and those are worth tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. But to be absolutely clear, we're talking about extremely rare errors. Most people will never see one in their lifetime. However, simply knowing that possibility exists is part of what keeps collectors searching. When someone finds a strange-looking 1944 penny, the first thing experts check is the weight and magnetism. But for the no mint mark bronze version we're discussing today, the value comes from condition, color, rarity at high grades, and historical importance. Collectors also look closely for die varieties. While 1944 doesn't have as many dramatic varieties as other years, there are minor double die examples and repunched details that can increase interest among variety specialists. Even small variations create excitement because they make your coin stand out from millions of others struck during that year. But beyond the technical details, the 1944 wheat penny is valuable because it represents resilience. Think about the era. Soldiers were returning home. Families were rebuilding, and America was transitioning from war to peace. This simple 1-cent coin traveled through that entire period. It paid for newspapers, for candy, for milk, for transportation, and for the everyday items that shaped American life in the 1940s and 1950s. That connection to the past is part of what makes these coins so powerful and collectible. You may be wondering, why does the auction price spike so high compared to the typical value? The answer lies in supply and demand. Billions were minted, yes, but only a tiny number survived in superb, untouched condition. When a collector wants the absolute best possible example for their collection, they will pay whatever it takes to secure it. And when two or more collectors compete for the same high-grade coin, the price can explode. That's exactly how the highest recorded price of $11,500 was achieved. Two collectors battled for the top-tier example, and the hammer price reflected their determination. Another reason these coins remain valuable is nostalgia. Millions of Americans grew up with wheat pennies. Many people remember seeing them in pocket change before the 1980s. Others recall their parents or grandparents saving them in jars. So when they discover a beautiful 1944 penny in high grade, it brings back memories of childhood, family, and the early days of collecting. That emotional connection adds another layer of demand. Now, let's take a moment to think like a collector searching for value. If you have a 1944 no mint mark penny, here are the key things that matter. First, how sharp are the details? Look closely at Lincoln's beard and hair. Look at the lettering. Look at the wheat stalks. The sharper and more complete the details, the higher the potential value. Second, observe the color. If your coin has original red or even red-brown tones, it has far more potential than a dark brown or heavily circulated example. Third, look for damage. Scratches, dents, bends, corrosion, and cleaning marks all reduce value. Even a small scratch across the fields can dramatically lower interest. Also, consider the historical story your coin carries. A 1944 penny isn't just bronze. Its metal actually came from melted down wartime shell casings and ammunition boxes. That means the copper in your coin literally came from the war effort. That detail alone makes this cent a part of American military history. And this is why these coins continue to be valuable today. Collectors, investors, and history enthusiasts all look for coins that tell a powerful story. The 1944 wheat penny does exactly that. It represents the end of World War II, the return to traditional metals, the resilience of the American economy, and the craftsmanship of the Philadelphia Mint. And when you combine all of that with rarity in high grade, you get a coin that can bring in thousands of dollars. As you can see, the 1944 no mint mark Lincoln wheat penny is not just an old coin. It is a valuable piece of American history. And because the highest recorded auction price reached $11,500, this single penny has become a symbol of why searching through old change can still lead to life-changing discoveries. If you ever come across a 1944 penny with stunning color, strong detail, and no major flaws, you might be looking at a treasure. And that's why collectors continue searching, studying, and learning, because the next valuable coin is still out there, and it might be hiding in someone's pocket change right now. Coin number 2. The 1945 wheat penny with no mint mark might look like a simple old cent that most Americans have seen in pocket change or old jars. But when you understand its history, its hidden varieties, and its high-grade rarity, you realize that this coin is far more valuable than people think. And because the highest recorded auction price for a 1945 no mint mark wheat penny reached an impressive $14,950, collectors across the country still search for the perfect example that can bring in thousands of dollars. That's why you should stay with me through this entire breakdown, because by the time we're done, you will understand exactly what gives this coin real value, what separates the regular examples from the rare money-making ones, and why the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny remains one of the most interesting coins from the World War II era. The first thing to understand about the 1945 penny is the historical moment it represents. This coin comes from the very last chapter of World War II. America was still finishing the fight overseas. Factories were still producing military equipment, and the U.S. Mint was operating at maximum speed to meet the country's needs. In fact, the bronze used in these pennies actually came from recycled wartime ammunition shell casings. That means you're holding a coin literally made from the war effort, a piece of physical history melted down, reshaped, and minted into something Americans used every single day. Because of that direct connection to World War II, collectors today still feel a strong emotional attachment to the 1945 penny. It symbolizes resilience, sacrifice, and the American story during the closing year of the war. But not all 1945 pennies are equal. Even though the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, most circulated heavily. They were used through the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, and by the time collectors started paying attention, most of these coins were worn, scratched, darkened, or damaged. That's why a high-grade example is extremely rare. When you find a 1945 penny with sharp details, strong hair strands on Lincoln, clean lettering, full wheat stalks, and the original red color, that coin instantly becomes special. Collectors pay a premium for beauty, originality, and preservation, especially for coins that survived untouched for 80 years. This is exactly why the best examples of the 1945 no mint mark penny have achieved massive auction prices. The highest recorded sale reached $14,950 for an exceptional red example with nearly perfect surfaces and mint brilliance. That one sale alone changed the way people looked at this coin. It proved that even a common year wheat penny could transform into a multi-thousand-dollar collectible if it survived in top-tier condition. That's why collectors still search rolls, old collections, and estate boxes hoping to find a gem hiding in the shadows, because the next valuable example might still be out there. But let's break down what makes one 1945 penny valuable and another worth only a few cents. The first factor is condition. A bright red mint state 1945 penny is incredibly hard to find. Most have turned brown or dark brown after decades of use. But a red example looks nearly the same as it did the day it was minted in Philadelphia. That fiery color proves the coin was never cleaned, never exposed to harsh conditions, and never allowed to oxidize. That originality is what collectors pay for. The second key factor is strike quality. Philadelphia produced so many coins in 1945 that the dies, the metal stamps that create the design, often wore down. A sharp, bold strike means the coin came from a fresher die or a stronger press. Look closely at Lincoln's beard, hair, and jawline. Look at the wheat stalks on the reverse. The tighter and sharper these details appear, the better the coin is. A weakly struck example will never bring the same value, even if the color is nice. Third is surface preservation. Scratches, dents, corrosion, and cleaning marks all lower value dramatically. A single scratch across the fields can knock a coin's price down by 90%. Cleaning is the worst mistake collectors make. If a 1945 penny looks shiny or polished, that's immediate value destruction. Original surfaces always win, even if they show minor flaws. Then there are small die varieties that specialists look for. The 1945 no mint mark penny has several interesting die cracks, minor doubling, and repunch features that add curiosity and variety for collectors. These small differences don't always bring massive premiums, but they can make your coin more desirable to hobbyists who love searching for hidden details. But the deeper value of the 1945 penny comes from its story. These pennies circulated during the last year of war, during the return of American troops, and during one of the most emotional and transformative chapters in U.S. history. People used these pennies to pay for newspapers announcing victory in Europe, to buy ration goods, to pay for transportation, and to rebuild American life. That emotional connection is part of its value today. Another reason collectors love this coin is because it was part of the great American transition from wartime materials back to traditional bronze. In 1943, pennies were minted in steel. In 1944 and 1945, the mint returned to bronze using recycled wartime metals. That means your 1945 penny is a physical link between the steel penny era and the return to normalcy. It represents peace coming into view, even before the war officially ended. If you have a 1945 no mint mark penny, here's what to look for. First, check the color. Red is the highest value, followed by red-brown, then brown. Second, inspect the details. Strong wheat stalks, crisp hairlines, full rims, and clean lettering are signs of a high-quality strike. Third, examine the surfaces. No scratches, no dents, no discoloration, no corrosion, and absolutely no cleaning. Fourth, look for original mint luster. That shimmering surface that reflects light in waves. Collectors love that look. Most circulated 1945 pennies are worth a small amount, but higher grade red examples can be worth tens, hundreds, or even thousands depending on the grade. And the top examples continue to rise in price because collectors want the best. When two or more collectors compete for the highest graded coin in existence, prices can explode. That is exactly what happened when the record price of $14,950 was achieved. The coin was simply stunning, blazing red, perfectly struck, and preserved like it had never been touched. Two serious collectors wanted the finest known example for their sets, and the bidding battle pushed the price to nearly $15,000. That's the power of condition rarity. That's the power of competition. And that's why even a common year penny can become extremely valuable under the right circumstances. The 1945 penny also continues to be popular because millions of Americans have childhood memories of wheat pennies. Older generations remember finding them in circulation. Some still have jars of them tucked away in boxes and drawers. These emotional connections fuel interest and demand. When someone finds a beautiful 1945 penny, it feels like discovering a piece of the past, something real, something that survived generations, something that represents American history in its purest form. It's important to remember that most coins from this era were used for decades. They passed through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, students, families, shopkeepers, and everyday Americans living through war and peace. Every mark, every tone, every subtle detail tells a story. And when you find a coin that somehow survived all of that without damage, that survival becomes valuable. So when you look at the 1945 wheat penny with no mint mark, understand this. It is not just old pocket change. It is one of the most historically significant pennies ever made, tied directly to the final chapter of World War II. It is a coin that can be worth thousands when found in exceptional condition. and with the highest recorded auction price reaching $14,950. This coin proves that even common dates can turn into rare treasures when preserved the right way. If you ever come across a 1945 penny with bright red color, sharp detail, and flawless surfaces, handle it carefully. You might be looking at a valuable coin that could attract serious collectors and bring in far more money than you would ever expect from a 1-cent piece. And that is exactly why coin collectors across America still search for the perfect 1945 wheat penny. Because somewhere out there, hidden in a drawer, a roll, or an old family jar, a treasure might still be waiting to be discovered. Coin number 3. The 1953 D. Lincoln wheat penny is one of those coins that many people overlook at first glance. But when you really understand the hidden value, the historical weight, the rare high-grade examples, and the dramatic price differences that collectors pay today, this coin becomes far more interesting than most people expect. And with the highest auction record for a 1953 D wheat penny reaching a stunning $19,975, this little Denver minted cent has proven that even a mid-century wheat penny can turn into a 4-figure treasure when its condition is exceptional. That's exactly why you should stay with me through this entire breakdown, because by the end, you'll know exactly what makes the 1953 D penny valuable, what details separate a common coin from a rare high-end collectible, and why collectors across America are still hunting for the perfect example. The story of the 1953 D wheat penny begins in the Denver Mint during a time when America was growing, modernizing, and transitioning through the post-World War II era. People were buying homes, building families, and the economy was booming. This penny passed through the hands of Americans in diners, gas stations, grocery stores, barbershops, and department stores. It represents a moment of American strength and change. And because wheat pennies were still produced at this time, this coin is part of the last decade of one of America's most iconic coin designs. All of that makes the 1953 D penny historically meaningful for collectors today. But even though the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1953 D pennies, the vast majority were used heavily in circulation. That means most of them became worn, scratched, darkened, or damaged over the decades. Wheat pennies were workhorses. They stayed in circulation for years, sometimes for decades, and they took a lot of abuse along the way. Because of this, finding a 1953 D penny in truly high-grade condition is far more difficult than people imagine. And that scarcity in top-grade condition is one of the biggest reasons this coin can be valuable today. Collectors look for sharp detail, original mint color, and clean surfaces. When you find a 1953 D penny with bright red color, no major marks, strong wheat stalks, and crisp detail on Lincoln's portrait, that coin instantly becomes special. Coins like that did not survive by accident. They were protected, stored, or saved from the very beginning. Most never had that luxury. Most circulated for 20, 30, or even 40 years before collectors began searching for wheat pennies. That's why untouched red examples from the Denver Mint bring strong premiums. This is exactly why the highest auction price for a 1953 D penny reached $19,975. That record-setting example was blazing red, extremely well struck, and preserved at a near-perfect level. Collectors competed aggressively because they knew it was one of the best surviving examples in existence. And when two or more collectors chase the same top-graded coin, the price climbs dramatically. That is the power of condition rarity. That is the power of numismatic demand. And that is why this coin continues to surprise people today. Now, let's break down the details that matter most. First is the mint mark. The D mark below the date stands for Denver, and Denver coins are known for being well made, but they were produced in huge quantities. The large mintage means that average circulated coins are common, but the number of top-tier survivors is extremely small. That supply and demand imbalance is exactly why high-grade coins bring such strong prices. Second is color. Collectors categorize copper coins into three groups: red RD, red-brown RB, and brown BN. Red is the most valuable because it means the original mint color survived. A 1953 D penny with bright original red surfaces can be worth dramatically more than one that has toned brown over time. Red examples are the ones that bring thousands. Brown examples usually bring only a few cents, unless they have exceptional details. Third is strike quality. The dies used in Denver were often pushed hard to meet production demands, and worn dies mean weak details. A sharply struck 1953 deep penny with clear hairlines, strong lettering, clean wheat lines, and full rims is far more desirable. Weakly struck examples are far more common. Fourth is surface preservation. This is the step that eliminates most coins from high-value range. Scratches, dents, spots, corrosion, cleaning marks, or fingerprints all reduce value. A single scratch can reduce a coin's value by 50% or more. Cleaning is especially damaging. Many older collectors polished wheat pennies to make them look new, but polishing destroys the original surface and kills the value. A cleaned coin looks shiny but unnatural, and collectors can spot it instantly. Fifth is luster. The mint luster, that swirling, cartwheel-like shine, is one of the biggest indicators of originality. When a 1953 D penny still has that rolling luster across the fields, it proves the coin was never cleaned or mishandled. Luster is one of the biggest factors in high-grade value. Another detail collectors examine is die varieties. The 1953 D penny has several interesting die cracks, repunched mint marks, and minor doubling varieties that add depth and interest. While not all of these bring huge premiums, they can still make your coin more desirable. Even minor varieties give a coin personality and uniqueness. But beyond the technical details, the 1953 D penny's value also comes from nostalgia. Millions of Americans grew up with wheat pennies. Parents and grandparents saved them in jars, sorted them on kitchen tables, and passed them down through generations. When people find a beautiful 1953 D penny, it awakens memories of childhood, family, and the days when wheat pennies were still in circulation. That emotional connection fuels demand and adds value. Collectors also appreciate how the 1953 D penny fits into the bigger story of American coinage. It comes from the final years before the wheat penny design ended in 1958. That means each coin from this period is part of the closing chapter of a 50-year American coin tradition. When a series nears its end, collectors become more passionate about completing their sets. This is another reason high-grade wheat pennies from the 1950s attract strong interest. Now let's talk about what to look for if you have a 1953 D penny. First, examine the color. Red brings the most value. Red-brown is good, but not top tier. Brown is common, but still collectible. Second, check the details. Look at Lincoln's hair, beard, and the lines in the wheat stalks. The more detailed the design, the better the strike. Third, check for damage. Any scratch, corrosion spot, or cleaning line lowers value. Fourth, check luster. Original luster means originality and preservation. Fifth, consider whether the coin has a repunched mint mark or minor doubled details. These can add interest for variety collectors. Most circulated 1953 D pennies are worth only a small amount, but higher grade red examples can be worth tens, hundreds, or even thousands depending on the grade. And the highest graded examples, the ones that look nearly flawless, continue to break price records because collectors always chase the best. That is why the $19,975 auction result remains such an important number. It proved that this coin has the potential to shock the market. Think about it. A 1-cent coin struck in 1953 turned into nearly $20,000 simply because it survived in extraordinary condition. That's the magic of numismatics. That's what keeps collectors searching. That's why people still dig through old rolls, boxes, and jars hoping to find the next treasure. Somewhere out there, inside a forgotten family collection or an old estate box, another stunning 1953 D penny might still be waiting to be discovered. This coin is not just a piece of copper. It is a piece of American history, a piece of the Denver Mint's legacy, and potentially a piece of valuable treasure. And when you understand how rare high-grade examples truly are, you begin to appreciate why collectors across America care so much about this one simple wheat penny. The 1953 D penny is valuable because beauty survived. It is valuable because the best examples are unbelievably scarce. It is valuable because collectors love the wheat penny series. And it is valuable because the highest auction record of $19,975 proves that this 1-cent coin can still change someone's life. So whenever you see a 1953 D penny, don't underestimate it. Look closely. Study the details. Check the color, the luster, the strike, the surfaces, and the originality. You might be holding something far more valuable than you think. And that is why the 1953 D Lincoln wheat penny continues to fascinate collectors today, because the next great discovery might still be out there, waiting for someone who knows exactly what to look for. Coin number 4, the 1951 S Lincoln wheat penny, is one of those coins that so many Americans have seen in old jars, basement boxes, or inherited family collections. And yet very few people understand how valuable this San Francisco minted penny can become when it survives in the right condition. Even though millions were minted, the finest surviving examples are extremely rare. And that rarity is exactly why the highest recorded auction price for a 1951 S wheat penny reached an impressive $18,000. That one result shocked collectors and instantly put this coin on the radar of anyone who searches for valuable wheat pennies. And because so many people overlook this date, this is exactly the kind of sleeper coin that can still surprise collectors today. The story of the 1951 S penny begins in post-war America. The country was rebuilding, shifting from wartime production toward a new era of prosperity. Families were moving into new homes, the economy was growing, and Americans were using pennies every single day in stores, shops, diners, and gas stations across the country. The San Francisco Mint played a major role in supplying the western United States with coins, and the S Mint mark below the date is a symbol of that legacy. Even though the San Francisco Mint produced millions of these pennies, very few survived in the exceptional condition that collectors demand today. Most 1951 S pennies circulated heavily. They passed through decades of use. They were dropped, scratched, handled, and tossed into jars. And by the time collectors truly began searching for wheat pennies, most of the 1951 S coins were already worn. That is why high-grade 1951 S pennies are so valuable. They are not just old, they are survivors. Perfectly preserved examples are incredibly scarce. And that scarcity is what drives the market. Collectors today care deeply about beauty, originality, and condition. A 1951 S penny with full mint red color, sharp details, clean surfaces, and strong luster is something special, something that stands out instantly. And that is exactly why the top examples bring thousands of dollars. When a coin looks like it just left the mint yesterday, even though it is over 70 years old, collectors pay huge premiums for that kind of preservation. The highest auction price of $18,000 was achieved for a stunning, blazing red example that had nearly flawless surfaces and exceptional eye appeal. That coin was considered one of the best ever found from the San Francisco Mint for that year. When two collectors battled for the top spot in their registry sets, the price skyrocketed. That is the power of competition in the coin market. That is the power of condition rarity. And that is why even a penny from the early 1950s can become incredibly valuable in the right grade. But it's important to understand that not all 1951 S pennies are created equal. There are several key factors that determine whether your coin is worth only a few cents or potentially hundreds or thousands. The first and most important factor is color. Copper coins are classified into three main categories: red RD, red-brown RB, and brown BN. The red examples are the most valuable because they retain the original mint color, that bright, fiery copper tone that collectors love. A 1951 S penny that still glows red after more than 7 decades is extremely rare, and that rarity drives the value into the high-end range. The second factor is strike quality. The San Francisco Mint sometimes produced coins using dies that were slightly worn or tired. A strong strike means the details, such as Lincoln's hair, beard, jawline, and the lines in the wheat stalks, are crisp and fully defined. A weak strike can make a high-grade coin look soft or blurry. collectors pay more for strong strikes because they show the design exactly as it was meant to appear. The third factor is surface preservation. This is where most coins fall short. Small scratches, marks, stains, or spots can lower the value dramatically. A single small scratch can drop a coin's value by 50%. Cleaning is especially damaging. Many old collectors polish their weak pennies trying to make them look shiny, but polishing destroys the original surface and ruins the value. A clean 1951 penny may look bright, but collectors can instantly tell it was altered. Originality always wins. The fourth factor is luster, that swirling, cartwheel-like shine that moves across the surface when the coin is tilted. Luster is a sign of a well-preserved coin. When a 1951 penny still has that original mint shine, it shows that the coin was stored safely and never circulated. Luster is one of the most important features for collectors who hunt for high-grade copper coins. Finally, variety collectors look for small details such as repunched mint marks, die cracks, and minor double features. The 1951 penny has several interesting die varieties that collectors love. While these don't always bring huge premiums, they can make your coin more desirable and more interesting to specialists. But beyond the technical aspects, there is something deeper that gives the 1951 penny value. Nostalgia. Wheat pennies are part of American culture. Older generations remember using them every day. Families passed them down. Kids collected them in books. People kept jars of them in closets and garages. These coins represent memories of childhood, of simpler times, of America in its post-war years. That emotional connection creates powerful demand in the collector market. And because the wheat penny series ended in 1958, the 1951 penny is part of the final chapter of one of America's longest-running coin designs. When a series nears its end, collectors become more serious about completing their sets. This drives demand for high-grade coins from the later years, especially from mints like San Francisco, where high-grade survivors are scarce. So if you find a 1951 wheat penny, here's what to look for. Check the color first. Red examples are the most valuable. Red-brown examples still have collectible value, but not as much as full red. Brown examples are the most common. Next, check the details of the strike. Strong details mean a higher quality example. Look at the wheat stalks, Lincoln's hair, and the rims. Then, inspect the surfaces carefully. No scratches, no stains, no corrosion, and especially no cleaning. After that, check the luster. If the coin glows under light with that cartwheel effect, you may have something special. And finally, look for small varieties or unique marks that might add interest. Most circulated 1951 wheat pennies are worth only a small amount, but the top-graded examples, the ones that look nearly perfect, can sell for hundreds or thousands. And the finest examples can break all expectations. The fact that a 1951 penny once sold for $18,000 proves that there is serious value hiding in this coin when it comes in exceptional condition. Think about how incredible that is. A 1-cent coin minted in San Francisco in 1951 turning into nearly $20,000 simply because it survived untouched, uncirculated, and beautifully preserved. That is what makes coin collecting so exciting. That is what keeps people searching through old rolls, inherited collections, and forgotten jars. The next great discovery could be sitting in someone's drawer right now. The 1951 wheat penny is not just a piece of copper. It is a piece of American history, a symbol of the San Francisco Mint, and a potential treasure for collectors who know what to look for. And because most people underestimate this date, the opportunity is still out there. A perfect example may still be hiding somewhere, waiting for someone who understands its value. So when you come across a 1951 penny, don't ignore it. Look closely. Study the color, the detail, the luster, the surfaces, and the originality. You may be looking at something far more valuable than you think. And that is exactly why this penny remains one of the most exciting coins from the early 1950s. Because its highest auction price of $18,000 is proof that even a small wheat penny can turn into something truly extraordinary. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you staying with me all the way through this video. If you're passionate about rare coins, valuable pennies, and hidden treasures in everyday change, then make sure you don't leave just yet. Go watch my previous video on Eisenhower dollar coins. Those dollars are shocking collectors right now with some incredible prices, and you definitely don't want to miss what's happening in that market. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel Coins Most Valuable. Click the notification bell so you're always first to know when a new coin value breakdown drops. And give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Share this video with anyone who loves collecting and drop a comment below. Tell me what coin you want me to cover next or what rare coin you found recently. I read every comment and I love hearing from you. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep checking your change. Your next big find might be closer than you think.